Tonight, sentenced to 36 years, Ian Packer, an evil predator guilty of the murder of Emma Caldwell and a campaign of extreme sexual violence against 22 women over more than 2 decades.
You have caused great harm to so many people as you indulged your pathologically selfish and brutal sexual desires.
A 5-week trial brings an end to the suffering of Emma's family, 19 years after her body was found in secluded woods. But for the mother who fought endlessly for justice, questions remain over the handling of the original inquiry.
Margaret believes that officers systematically sabotaged an investigation into Packer for a decade and have blood on their hands.
An apology from Police Scotland and a call for a public inquiry into the force and its toxic culture of misogyny and corruption, which left her killer free to attack again and again.
Emma Caldwell, her family and many other victims were let down by policing in 2005. For that, we are sorry.
We look back at the missed opportunities and the predator who thought he could get away with it. I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. An evil predator jailed for life for a murder which could have been solved nearly 2 decades ago. Ian Packer is starting a 36-year sentence for strangling Emma Caldwell and dumping her body in remote woods. Today there are calls for a judge-led public inquiry into the police failings which left Packer free to attack again and again. We now know he carried out rapes and sexual assaults 19 times after Emma's murder in 2005.
Police Scotland has apologised to the Caldwell family and the many women who were let down by the original inquiry. The 27-year-old's family has blamed a toxic culture of misogyny and corruption. Throughout, Emma's mother has campaigned for justice. Today, after nearly 20 years and a 6-week trial, she finally got that. Our chief reporter Sharon Frew reports.
When the policeman came to tell me that they'd found Emma's body, I had this huge breath, and now I feel as if I can breathe again.
A much-loved daughter, a girl with golden hair who adored horses and rainy days. Losing her sister to cancer led Emma Caldwell to heroin. Sex work to fund that addiction exposed her to a world her parents knew nothing about, and to her killer. For the mother who never gave up, the guilty verdict brought no joy or elation. Margaret Caldwell praised all those who came forward to make justice possible, but condemned the failings of the original inquiry.
Margaret believes that officers systematically sabotaged an investigation into Packer for a decade and have blood on their hands. For far too long, they have remained in the shadows but must now answer for their betrayal. Today, Margaret Caldwell calls on the Scottish Government to order an independent judge-led public inquiry into what went wrong.
Within minutes of a guilty verdict, an apology.
Emma Caldwell, her family and many other victims were let down by policing in 2005. For that, we are sorry. A significant number of women and girls who showed remarkable courage to speak up at that time also did not get the justice and support they needed and deserved from Strathclyde Police.
Tell me your involvement relating to the rape and murder of Emma Caldwell.
No comment.
Ian Packer has been jailed for at least 36 years after being found guilty of murdering Emma Caldwell and 32 additional charges of physical and sexual violence against 22 different women dating back to 1990. The youngest he raped was 15 years old.
Over more than 25 years, you pursued a campaign of violence and appalling sexual mistreatment of a very large number of women. You have caused great harm to so many people as you indulged your pathologically selfish and brutal sexual desires. The women involved resisted and protested, but you would not listen. The trauma you caused has led to suffering which has endured for decades.
Did you kill Emma?
No, I never.
The denials of a murderer.
I could look you in the eye and say no, I had nothing to do with it whatsoever. I'm not a violent person.
The lies told by Ian Packer in a BBC documentary have finally caught up with him. Like Emma, many of Packer's victims worked in Glasgow's red light district, which was also known as the Drag. Two described how this prolific user of sex workers left them fearing for their lives. One placed his name in what was called a beware book to warn others after a terrifying assault and abduction.
I was really scared when he started driving off. He was grabbing me and I thought he was going to hit me. I jumped out of the lights and ran hell for leather. I'm always looking over my shoulder now. Knowing he will never walk the streets again helps. He's a danger to all women.
He was choking me. I told him to stop, but he ignored me. Couldn't breathe. I went in his van a lot and he did ask me to go for a drive out of the city, but I always refused.
Several women were taken by Packer in his van to a place they described as being in the middle of nowhere. Jurors traced the 40-mile journey Emma would have taken with her killer to Limefield Woods in South Lanarkshire. Packer had claimed he found this remote spot by chance and it was used by others.
I think we've just found a dead body. It looks, I was on the top half, it looks naked. It's face down, blonde hair, I think.
Emma's body was discovered by a dog walker 5 weeks after she had disappeared. She had been strangled. With no blood, DNA or fingerprints, it was soil recovered from the footwell of Ian Packer's van that proved to be the most damning piece of evidence. It was a 97% match, with samples taken from the molehill next to where Emma lay. Almost 19 years on, Ian Packer, handcuffed to a guard, was using a walking stick when he was brought back to these woods. He was wearing a face mask as jurors walked past him while they viewed this site during this trial. He remained impassive as he stood by the ditch where he had dumped Emma's body.
It was a journalist that phoned me and told me that her body had been found. I just broke. Soul destroying, because that was one I really thought that we could have saved.
She did want to go into rehab. She was
desperate to get into a rehab, but Emma never got the chance to live her life. It was taken away from her.
Anne McElveen ran a charity called Salt and Light, and its bus was a fixture on the Drag. It was a place of safety when fear spread following Emma's murder. Ian Packer was said to be besotted with the 27-year-old.
It wasn't I seen his picture and I thought, he came to the bus. He came to the bus for lassies. She told me she was frightened of somebody, but she never gave me a name. She says, he'll no leave me alone. And I told the police that. 7 statements I gave.
Can I have your name?
Retired detectives believe Police Scotland and the Crown Office wasted time and money pursuing the wrong suspects, and that they had the evidence to convict Ian Packer for almost 2 decades. This was a murder inquiry running 2 parallel operations, codenamed Grail and Guard. Davy Barr was part of the intelligence-led Operation Grail. Over months, Packer gave 6 voluntary statements. By the time he spoke to Davy Barr, his story had changed. Not only did he know Emma, he had taken her to woods in Lanarkshire. Packer agreed to go with police to this location in 2007. Emma's body was found just yards away from where he told detectives to park.
He took us down into the fir trees and there was still a kind of shrine which I hadn't seen, and it was kind of, you kind of get a shiver up your, you know, it was like, wow. If we had dealt with him as a suspect, we would probably get the truth from him. That was my feeling. I'm pretty sure he was on his way to admitting what he'd done.
Ian Packer remained a witness, not a suspect at this time. This was because Operation Guard was focused on a group of Turkish men. One of them had made the last call to Emma's mobile. Surveillance set up in a Glasgow cafe produced what police believed were tapes of incriminating conversations. 4 men were arrested in 2007, but the quality of the evidence was challenged and the case collapsed.
For the police to evolve, they need to learn by their mistakes. And the mistakes made in that inquiry were inexcusable, to be honest with you. We had the ability to solve that murder without covert inquiries, and Operation Grail solved that, and we were told to forget all that.
Emma's father died the day after he was told no further legal proceedings were planned. In 2015, the mishandled investigation and the man dubbed the forgotten suspect made headlines.
The evidence pointing at Ian Packer seemed to be really very compelling. In attempting to shore that up and go out to speak to people who knew him, it was very quickly fortified. There was one door which I knocked to attempt to identify a picture that we'd taken of Ian Packer. A woman looked at it and closed the door on me straight away, and later got a message back to me telling me that the reason she'd done that was that she was sick on the spot at seeing a picture of him again. It was absolutely clear that this is a person who frightened women.
A hunt was launched to find the newspaper's sources, and while the murder case was reopened, it was another 7 years before Ian Packer was arrested. The reinvestigation has been described as extremely challenging, and Scotland's largest police inquiry of recent times. Ian Packer showed little emotion as jurors returned guilty after guilty verdicts. Emma's family sobbed. Survivors were also in tears. 6 of the women Packer preyed upon died before this case came to trial.
He's a monster. Absolute monster. Emma's been in my thoughts for 15 plus years.
Thank you, everyone.
I'm so proud of her mum. She never gave up.
Well, the judge praised the campaigning of Emma Caldwell's mother, describing it as a living testament to the love for her daughter and the enormity of her loss.
The Lord Advocate has now offered to meet with Margaret Caldwell to answer any questions she may have and to discuss the investigation, adding that it's a matter of regret that it has taken until now for justice to be served. Emma's mother and her lawyer spoke to Sean.
I said to my husband, I can't lose another child. And I cried and sobbed. And he says, don't give up hope, we're still searching. But I knew right away that Emma was gone. Knew she was gone. There's something inside me, knew that she wouldn't go a day without phoning me. And we just lived for her coming home. Just lived for her coming home. Wanted her home.
Did you get an insight into the world in which the women and Emma was living in?
I was naive to all this. I had no idea. We just thought she wanted to stay at the hostel till she could get into rehabilitation some way. We knew she was a heroin addict, which was a terrible thing, and we worried about it all the time. But we'd absolutely no knowledge that she worked in the streets of Glasgow to fuel her habit.
And of course Packer admitted to assaulting Emma the months before.
Yes. It was a terrible place to live, Inglefield Street. I wish I'd taken her home. At one point I met her one day and she asked me to come, and she got into the car and she was crying. And she said, Mum, I need to come home. And my husband said to me, she just swept her up there and then and told her to come. I've always felt real guilt about that. When I think about Blownfield Woods, I replay that over and over and imagine what agony she went through. I know it's not good for me, but I can't stop it. I feel let down by the first investigation, definitely. Definitely feel let down there. They just dropped it and hid the case away, and that was it. It wasn't even, if they had discovered, yes, it wasn't these Turkish men, that had murdered Emma, then who had? Someone was out there that had done it, but they were just going to let that go till it became a cold case.
In 2007, the 4 Turkish men are falsely accused of the crime, one of whom happened to be my client. We knew very early on as defence lawyers, Ian Packer's in the frame. We knew there was evidence there, and we are now asking for a full statutory inquiry into the actions of Strathclyde Police and Police Scotland after that, and those individuals whose fingerprints were on this case, because 6 of those women, apart from Emma, are now dead. They never saw justice. I think there was a toxic culture at the time of misogyny combined with corruption that meant that women who were vulnerable, women who had drug addictions and women who were sex workers didn't matter, but they did matter.
Not all of those women have anyone that can speak up for them. But I spoke up for Emma, and at the same course, I'm speaking up for them.
Can you tell me about Emma, the Emma you remember?
There's one thing I do remember particularly well. She liked rainy days. She always loved rainy days, and so did I. My husband used to call us the ducklings because we liked wet days. And she came home from the stables and she had a bunch of wildflowers, which she very proudly put in a vase and stuck on the kitchen windowsill. And she went, "These are for you, Mum. I love you, Mum."
And Scotland Tonight will have Sharon's extended interview with Emma's mum this evening. Well, on to other stories, and residents of a small town in Highland, Perthshire are speaking of their shock after a man was shot and killed while walking his dog. 65-year-old Brian Lowe was shot on the outskirts of Aberfeldy 11 days ago. Police took 6 days to carry out a post-mortem before a murder investigation was launched. Detectives are appealing for information.
We are shocked. It's very quiet, lovely place to live, so a bit of a surprise.
It seems someone going for a walk. It makes you think, do I go on my own or do I stay at home?
Everybody is just really sort of distraught about it, I would say.
Supermarkets could soon be banned from selling crisps and sugary drinks in meal deals to encourage healthier eating habits. Plans being considered by the Scottish Government also include a crackdown on unlimited refills in restaurants.
We've got 2 and 3 adults who are overweight and obese, a third of children aged 2 to 15. So we need to do something different, and this I think is about changing the food environment. So making sure that we level the playing field so the unhealthy products are not the cheapest, and that people can really think about what they can afford in the context of a better diet.
More than 90,000 Scots live with dementia. In Glasgow, a project is working to help them regain their confidence and live their lives to the fullest with the help of dogs. Vidushi Tiwari went to a session of bingo at the Dementia Dog Project to learn more about their canine helpers.
Believe it or not, these dogs are hard at work. They're trained, full-time dementia assistance dogs. They're matched to families as required after a detailed application process.
You could say, well, a human could do a lot of those tasks, prompting, reminding someone to take their medication, but actually what each of these tasks is doing is just lifting that strain off the carer's shoulders.
Anne Rankin's husband Henry had dementia for about 12 years before his death in 2022. Their assistance dog Uno helped with everything, from fetching medication to taking off Henry's socks. They both appeared in campaigns for the project before Henry died.
There is life having dementia, you know, your life doesn't stop.
Anne says Uno was her husband's lifeline and that she doesn't know what they would have done without him.
2018 we got Uno, and I think Henry would have died sooner, to tell you the truth. He would have lost all his confidence. For me, I wouldn't have had any respite whatsoever.
These days, Uno helps fellow dementia dog Sandy lead bingo sessions at the project's HQ. It helps with mental stimulation, which people with dementia need. The project has matched around 13 families with assistance dogs so far, and it hopes to keep training more forever friends. Vidushi Tiwari, STV News.
Sport now with Raman.
Thanks, John. We start with big news on Andy Murray's future. The former world #1 has revealed he's set to retire this summer.
Likely not going to play past the summer. I get asked about it after every single match that I play, every single tournament that I play. I'm not going to talk more about that between now and whenever the time comes for me to stop. But I don't plan on playing much past this summer.
It's a big night in the Scottish Premiership with 5 games taking place. Among them, Hearts host Hibs in the Edinburgh Derby. At Rugby Park, league leaders Rangers take on 4th place Kilmarnock. And at Celtic Park, the champions welcome Dundee.
I think the 2 derbies so far have been open. The last one probably lacked a bit of quality, but overall they've been entertaining games. We won the last one. We shot ourselves in the foot in the first one, but we've been in the derbies, we've been in good places throughout the games.
It's something that we know is really important to the fans. The new boys coming in, they know how important it is as well. And we've had boys that have played in plenty of derbies. I know how important the derbies are, it's a good opportunity for us coming off the back of not one good performance, a run of good performances.
We're expecting a tough game, but equally I expect Rangers to get a tough game from us if we can be anything like ourselves, and it's important that we are that team. We feel there's a performance in us that can upset Rangers and get after Rangers and cause Rangers problems.
We will approach that game like all of the games with respect for the opponent, but also respect for ourselves. So to play our own game, we're going to go there full focus, but we know it's one of those dangerous moments that it can be a bump on the road.
Everyone wants to win and everyone wants to perform well. Before that, it's that belief. And I think you've seen that in this team and at the weekend, that belief that they can go and get the result, and thankfully we did do. We've played well in the 2 games against them, in particular the second game up there. We, again, have to be at the top of our game to get a result. They've been flexible in the systems and how they play. They started off with a back 5 and more recently sort of adapting between a back 4 and a back 5.
Yeah, I genuinely believe that we've got enough to stay in the league. I do, but is that enough to keep us in the league? It's not. But again, it's up to me to make sure the players are focused on the Motherwell game and to go out there and try and pick 3 points up, and that's what we're going to do.
You've got good players like I believe we've got. If we can try and service them in the right areas and ask the right questions of Livingston, then you always believe you're going to create chances and gain opportunities to score goals.
St Mirren manager Stephen Robinson says his team were denied a clear penalty in their draw with Ross County last night. The Saints went a goal down in the first half when Jordan White capitalised on an error from Alex Gogic to score. Just before half-time, County's Ryan Leake handled the ball in the box, but this wasn't checked by VAR and no spot kick was given. In the 86th minute, Toyosuya Olasanya levelled for the visitors. It finished 1-1.
Thanks very much, Raman. Now here's Sean.
An icy start to the day will give way to a series of oohs and ahs. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
A very good evening to you now. I know it may not have felt like it, but it's been turning a lot milder out there today, especially across Ayrshire and also parts of Argyll. Temperatures about 10, 11 degrees Celsius into low 50s in Fahrenheit. But tonight, colder air coming in, and that colder air will stay with us through the weekend. And I expect across the likes of the Fintry Hills, the Ochils, the Kilpatricks, the Campsies, and especially the southern uplands, there will be a little bit of winteriness as we head into Friday and also the weekend. Now, for the time being, nothing wintry out there just now until a little bit later on the night when colder air starts to come in. The rain turns a bit heavier for the next couple of hours. That clears away eastwards. That heavier rain is the cold front. So as it clears away, it pulls in the colder air. So quite a chilly end to the night, but a dry start to tomorrow, especially across central and southern parts. So probably around the likes of Cumbernauld, Stirling, Glasgow and towards Paisley and Greenock. Southwards, a lot of dry weather to start the day. North, though, there will be plenty of showers, especially across Stirlingshire and also Argyll and Bute and the Highlands. And they will be wintry over higher ground with top temperatures 5 or 6 degrees Celsius. A blustery day to come tomorrow, so feeling very chilly in that wind, especially strong around Col and Tyree, perhaps Mull, where there's a risk of some gales for a short time. Much quieter day to come on Friday. A lot of dry and bright weather. The further north we go, we'll see some rain and hill snow coming into the south, especially across the southern uplands on Friday. And with plenty of showers central and eastern parts on Saturday. Some of those again wintry over higher ground. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
And that is all from us tonight.
From all of us here, thank you for watching. Have a good night.
Good night.